I've been getting abusive on the phone because we've been getting a lot of annoying...
I don't know why that was funny to me, but it was.
This goes out to the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. And it's hard, and it's a job for the challengers. It's what? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Well, I'd like to start this episode off by congratulating BBC Radio 1's Jordan North for coming in second place on the Welsh Castle edition of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Congrats.
Congrats, Jordan. I was pulling for you to win, but I can't vote because I'm in a different country. But getting to second place, especially since when Adele Roberts from Radio 1 was the first person voted off the year she was on it.
Crazy.
Which was harsh. Normally it's in the Australian outback, but this time because of the pandemic, it was in a haunted Welsh castle.
Neat.
And Jordan violently threw up on his first episode.
Sure.
So good stuff. Congrats, Jordan.
Congratulations.
Nothing to do with comics. So, Dal, I was surprised to find you sitting in the studio waiting for me to get home today.
Yes.
Normally you have to be gotten or be told it's time.
I was reading a comic book.
Oh, I see. Well, here's the here's the trick to that.
Uh-huh.
We weren't going to record tonight.
Oh, no?
We didn't need to do an episode.
Why not?
We got one in the can.
Okay, I can get up and leave.
Nope, too late. You got me. You got me sitting down. The microphones are going. I got my notes out.
Oh.
So there you go. We're doing it. So you got a little overeager.
I was sincerely just reading a comic book.
So that means that there will be a bonus episode
Cool.
next week for everybody.
Cool.
And you're stuck doing this all the time. But Dal, I know you feel like you do this in a vacuum sometimes. Like it's just, you talking at me and we don't know if anybody ever responds or even, if people even hear this. Mm-hmm. Well, I have got good news for you.
Validation?
I have some cool information that might interest you.
Interesting.
Our podcast, Contest of Challengers, has good performance in some rankings in the last 30 days.
That's cool.
Of course, these rankings were from Monday, November 9th, and I've just forgotten to
Okay, they've
bring
probably
them up.
only gone up from there.
Do you want to start at the bottom or at the top?
Bottom.
We, in the category of business, Contest of Challengers ranked at position 156 of all business podcasts in Ghana.
Cool. I always knew we were big in Ghana.
We came in position 66 in the category of entrepreneurship in the Czech Republic.
Okay.
But wait, there's more. We came in position 51 in the category of entrepreneurship in the country of Italy.
Okay. You got people from Italy.
I do.
I got people from, I think, Czech Republic.
We have two more positions
Eastern
to announce.
Europe, anyway. I don't know exactly where.
And they get higher. I guess lower, but you know what I mean. They are both in the category of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. One is position 32. Any guesses of the country?
Spain.
Cambodia.
My second guess. Should have gone with my gut on that one.
And then we crack the top 20. We got to position 19 in the category of entrepreneurship in a country that we've already been ranked on this very list for a different category.
Okay.
Ghana.
Wow. Again, huge in Ghana. I knew it.
Huge in Ghana. Yeah.
I've been saying it for a while, and you're like, no, I don't think so. And the numbers bear it out. I was right.
This data is provided by podstatus.com.
Thank you, podstatus.com.
Happy podcasting. Imagine how much more information we could garner from them were we to pay for their service in some way.
I can't imagine how we would better take advantage of our fan base in Ghana.
The purpose of Podstatus, as you might know or assume, is to provide podcast owners like us information about podcast rankings. Legitimation, is that a word?
I guess.
Legitimation. Legitimate interest of pod status. Your data will not be transferred onto third parties. Possibility of international transfer? Yes.
Yes.
What?
That
Right.
is an affirmative.
You can object to our processing or request access, recertification, or deletion of your data. Origin of data? Public podcast feed. More information at this link. You will not receive any further communications of this kind.
Oh, no.
How will we know if we go up or down?
I miss them so much.
Ghana is waiting for us. And the subject matter of that email was, Contest of Challengers is ranking very well in Ghana.
Well, I know where our first stop is going to be once travel restarts in 2021.
You know, I'm taking a moment to write down the word
Live
pod
episode
status.
Ghana. Just put that right there on your notes.
I do have a connection to Ghana.
Do you?
Yeah, when I was in college, a woman that I worked with at a call center left school to join the Peace Corps, or after college, went to join the Peace Corps and was literally digging toilets in Ghana. And it was a...
Do you think this person is the one who's listening to the podcast?
I don't, because I
think so.
assume
I
that
think it's
Kathy
exactly them.
is way back here,
Nope.
but
Still in Ghana.
it
Loved
was-
Just love the experience.
even such an ordeal to get mail
Uh-huh.
that I would send her cassettes, because she had a cassette player,
Okay.
mainly just me babbling, pretty much like a podcast before there was podcasting,
Wow.
in the
Pioneer.
1980s. And one day she was walking along a dirt road and happened to look down, and there was a package for me.
Just in the middle of the road?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. And I've long since forgotten what my Ghana name would be, because your name is just based off of your gender and the day the day of the week and the month you were born.
Okay.
You know how Icelandic names are like Goodman's daughter, things like that.
Sure.
Very much like that. So anyway, I do have a very small connection to Ghana, so maybe that caused it.
I think so.
Dale, what do you want next? Do you want a story from in the store today, or a story from out the store today?
Oh, gosh. The one from in the store, please.
You and I had talked earlier in this week about how it's almost at a point where we're self-censoring on this very podcast.
I mean, you said that, yes.
Yeah.
I maybe agreed, but I didn't volunteer that, because I don't think I censor myself as much as you do.
Well, it's because you're not going to bring up the stories I would bring up, I guess.
Probably.
So basically there has been some interesting behavior from people who shop with us, and it is stuff we would normally talk about on the podcast, but said behavior is done by people who we know listen to the podcast.
I like that we're talking about censoring ourselves, and you're specifically excluding details so people don't think or know that we're talking about them. But you're doing it in a way where now everybody who shops at this store who listens to the podcast is going to be like, is it me? Is it something I did?
Well, I'm going to go into more detail so they'll know.
Oh, okay.
My point was going to be that it seems unfair to deprive everyone else of this content. And if we just take the name off and don't paint it in a shameful way, just telling a story, then only the person who did it will know that it's them.
Okay.
And hopefully it's told in a way that they're not upset by it.
Okay.
For example, today a club member came to the side counter, and pulled their mask down and hooked it under their jaw.
Oh.
So I said, hey, pull that mask back up in a sing-songy, polite way, not in a, hey, what are you doing? Hey, how dare you? Just like, hey, pull that mask back up.
Yep.
You know, just like that.
Yep.
And they said, oh, I was just doing that so you'd see who I was. And then I said, you could also use your words.
Yep. You could say, hi, it's my name.
Yeah.
And then we would say, oh, hello, your name. And then
Yeah.
we would get your books if that name matched a subscriber's name.
I thought that was a weird thing to do, and I'm
Very weird.
pretty sure that person had done it before,
Okay.
done the same thing,
Yeah.
but that might have just like it just pulled down. This was a
Boy, gosh,
pull down and hook.
I would really prefer people not do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so don't do that. Just, especially, like, it's not as if I was ringing somebody up and just ran to get their books or looked over or whatever.
Sure.
I was deliberately engaging with them.
Sure.
So don't do that. Don't do that. How long do you think you'll keep wearing your mask after vaccines are distributed?
Until medical officials and the federal government tell me to stop doing it. Or more specifically, until medical professionals and the Chicago city government tells me to stop doing it.
What if
Because
Letitia
those might
Wright...
be two completely different things. Oh, I was just reading about that.
What if she tells you not to do it?
Oh, There's a point where it's like, hey, I'm just asking questions. It's okay to be a free thinker. And then it's like, you have a platform and you're endangering the public good by asking some of these questions, which, A, you don't have to publicly broadcast that you're asking these questions, calling medical science into doubt. And B, like, some of the people you're amplifying, they're not professionals. They are other people who are just asking questions. And it's like, these are bad faith arguments.
One of the I guess, a video she shared, which is very long, and I can't remember if it was Deadline I was reading this on or somewhere else, where they said, like, well, we specifically haven't watched this whole thing, or I guess I can't remember the phrase, was something like, we haven't traumatized our ears with the entire thing, but the person who was speaking repeatedly pointed out that they were not a medical professional, they were not a doctor.
But it's okay because they're just asking questions. No. There is a level at which asking questions about certain things becomes dangerously unsafe.
Especially when it's someone who says, I've never really understood vaccines.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, so no, I do not have a ton of... Like, again, if this is... It's the classic celebrity thing of, like, doing it publicly to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or potentially millions of your fans who are, because they're fans, impressionable. And you're amplifying dangerous claims. Like, if she wants to just have that opinion or investigate that herself, fine, go ahead. But once you start making it public and then you hide behind, I'm just asking questions, people can make up their own minds. No, you don't get to do that. At a certain point, you don't get to do that. You've got to be responsible about how you use that platform. Yeah, just in general, it's okay if celebrities don't say everything they're thinking out loud. It's okay. That's fine.
Believe it or not, we don't say everything we're thinking out loud.
No,
here.
I really don't. I mean, I don't, like, self-censor for, like, the benefit of the podcast, but I, as a human being, think about what I'm going to say before I say it, not as much as I probably should, but certainly more than zero. And then I use that calculation to decide what I should and should not say out loud. And I'm also not on social media because of things like that.
Another example of interesting customer behavior earlier this week was we have a club member who is usually on their phone when they're in, but like on an earpiece.
Yes.
So not the incredibly obnoxious speakerphone walking around,
Or FaceTime.
holding the phone in front of them. No, I'm at the store. No, I'm at the comic store now. No, I'm at the comic store. Like that kind of thing. But sometimes, because this person is frequently talking, you can't tell if they're talking to A, the person on the phone, B, themselves, which they do occasionally,
Yep.
or C, us.
Yeah. Hard to know sometimes when to jump into the conversation.
Yeah. And, like, you'll peripherally hear a question, but you don't actively pay attention because you don't want to be eavesdropping on someone else's conversation.
Right.
So sometimes when a question is directed to you, you may not realize it and be like, wait, what? Was that?
Especially because sometimes the question is asked not looking at you.
Yeah.
And at that point, I just assume that they're talking to someone on the phone. And then they turn their head and look at me, and then they ask the question again, and I realize, oh, that was for my benefit. Okay.
And this is not a, I can't believe they did this, or how dare they story. This is a, I'm sorry that it happened, and I don't know how to react to it. This club member came up to me. I was on the far back by the back door part of the counter, and said, "Oh, hey, I'm a member of a club now too." And I understood that part of it, but I didn't know what they meant specifically. I'm like, okay, so, yeah, I lost I lost a loved one. My dad died like this week or last week. Like, oh man, I'm so sorry. And it's a rough year. Jeremy Huggins' mom just passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So it's a rough year for parents, but it was such a weird way to say it.
Yeah, it was a weird way to launch into that.
Now, to be fair, I did start a separate Facebook account way earlier in the year so we could have a Challengers subscribers Facebook group where we could reach out to people. And we were doing a lot of, hey, FOCs are for this book coming up, don't forget that kind of stuff, that kind of posting in there right before the pandemic. And on that Facebook profile, I befriended a lot of club members. Specifically, and it even says that account is made to connect to Challenger subscribers. And then I start getting friend requests from relatives and people, like friends from other parts of the country. It's like, that's not the point. Like, we're already friends on Facebook. This is a different thing. Greg Titus, I don't need to befriend you twice. And I am friends with that person on that account. And they had posted a tribute to their father passing.
Oh, okay.
And were I to be more active on that account, I would have known that. I would have noticed it.
Sure.
And I didn't. And I'm very sorry for the loss. And it's rough for anyone to lose a parent.
Sure.
Regardless of how or when or what the circumstances are. It was just a little weird way to phrase it.
Yeah, the start of that announcement was very unusual. Because it's almost the same way that you would say that you got a new dog.
Yeah.
Or that you bought a motorcycle. And it's like, those are, yay, and this is sorry. So I don't, there's an incongruity there that was like a bit of whiplash.
And even though a lot of people this year have been commenting on the fact that I have lost a parent, let's not forget that as far as that club and Challengers goes, Dal's the OG.
Yeah. He's got 2 thumbs and a dead dad. This guy. See, that's the kind of whiplash I'm talking about there.
Who were we talking about that to earlier in the week?
I can't. I can't.
Somebody was in the store.
They were.
And you had to be like, my dad's dead too.
Was it, it was Davish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then, I think it was weird because he was in earlier in the day and then the person whose father had just passed came in later that evening. So it was this weird timeline of just like...
To be fair...
Why are we talking about this so much?
Steve didn't lose a parent this week.
Right. It just came up... I don't want to phrase it this way, but it came up in conversation.
It did. Hey, people who email us, here's a thing you don't have to do. Especially subscribers. If you ask us to sign you up for a book, and you get an email back that says done or will do or got it, something like that.
Yep.
A very brief reply to let you know that your concern is being handled.
Your request has been received and it is being acted on.
You do not have to thank us in a separate email.
That's true.
That's very polite, and that is what I would do in the other situation, but you don't have to.
Sure.
We're both getting a little bogged down in emails lately, and it's one more step, and I feel like a dick even saying it.
It's a hard thing. It's the equivalent of like, I don't want anything for my birthday, and it's like, well, I wanted to get you something, and now you made it weird.
Sure. Yeah. Now do you want the outside of the story, the store story?
Sure.
Well, it's a trick, because it's actually in the store as well.
Weird.
It's Christmas time. And that means Christmas cards and mailing out presents.
Yeah, that's true.
And things like that.
I gotta wrap some stuff tomorrow that's gonna go out.
So, it also means I gotta buy more stamps, specifically postcard stamps.
Yes.
And I was gonna swing by Food Smart on the way in. I'm like, you know what? I'll wait. I'll have packages. And the good postal worker came first thing this morning.
Ooh, okay.
So I knew that, and I only had, printed Steele's label, and that's all.
Sure.
I knew there were multiple other things I'd be getting to during the day.
Right.
And I also had some gifts that I was sending out. So I'm like, you know what? I'll take these with me. I'll go to Food Smart. I'll drop them off. I'll buy my stamps.
Sure.
So I go to Food Smart. Only one person in front of me in the post office line. Great. It's my turn. I go up. I'm like, hey, here's a stack of like 7 things, 5 or 6 things, 7 things, whatever. Already paid for. Just giving it to you. I like to buy some stamps. Sure, what kind? Like, can I get 200 postcard stamps and 100 first-class letter stamps? And she looks at me, postcard stamps? Yeah, they're like 35-cent ones. So she lifts up a little box and hands it to me. It says, are they in there? And it was the box of all the stamps they had.
Uh-huh.
So I'm rooting through all the stamps, and all the stamps are is first-class letter stamps with different designs.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, I do need some of these. And I was hoping for a roll, but I just...
The booklets is fine.
Yeah. So I pulled out Christmas design ones.
Perfect.
I'm like, yeah, I need these, but I'll... She's like, we don't have anything. Those are all of our stamps. I'm like, oh, all right. I guess I'll go to the post office. I wish I hadn't given you all my packages.
Now they're going to sit here until a mail carrier comes and picks them up and takes them to the post office.
Which is where I was going. So I go to the post office, and there's a lot of cars up front. I'm like, I'll just park in the no parking zone.
Sure.
Right behind a mail truck, like we've done before.
Mm-hmm.
But that was when only one of us was going in.
Correct.
This time, I go in. And there's like 6 people in line. And I think, oh man, this is going to take forever. Hey, look. Here's a self-service machine. You can buy stamps from this machine. So I start. It's interactive. It's a touchscreen.
Sure.
So I get to the postcard stamps. And it's like, you can buy, 1 to 100. Great. I'll buy 100. I need 200, but I'll do 100. Then I'll do a separate transaction from
Sure.
Yeah, right? So I'm like, put in my card, type in 100. It takes a little bit for the payment to go through. Then it's like, hey, pull your card out. I'm like, all right, great. Then it's like, all right, I'm printing your stamps. 7 seconds. A stamp comes out. It prints the stamps one at a time. It takes 6 to 7 seconds to print a stamp.
Wow.
I had just told it to print 100 stamps.
10 minutes worth of stamps.
So I'm sitting there. The line empties. I'm like, well, screw that. So I run up to the front of the line. Like, hey, can I get 100 postcard stamps? And so I do. And as I'm walking back, there's a guy messing with the machine. I go, hey, man, I'm actually using that. You can see it's still printing out. Did you need to use it? He's like, yeah. I'm like, unfortunately, it's going to take like 10 minutes for this to be open. Sorry. And he just looks at me. I'm like, I asked for 100 stamps. I did not know it prints one at a time. I'm waiting for them to all print out. So he did what I did. He saw there's no one in line. Goes in line. Then a few more people come in. Then a woman standing behind me, and I turn to her and I say, I'm sorry, are you waiting for this machine? She's like, yeah. I did the same thing. It is going to be 4.5 more minutes until this, because I was counting the stamps in my head as they came out, until this machine is available, because I asked for 100 stamps. She also went to the line, got through the line, and left whilst I was still waiting for the stamps to come out. And occasionally, it would make a stamp noise, and a stamp would not come out. So I think we may have been shorted 2 stamps.
That's fine.
And then I would keep poking my head outside to be like, is there anybody? And then there was like a car behind me, the flashers on, and there was another postal truck behind me. And I did not get a ticket.
Great.
It's just that, all these extra steps.
Yeah, for sure.
All these stupid extra post office steps. And that's what made you so anxious. You just were like waiting in here already. Why aren't we recording?
No, I just wanted to read some comic books.
Like what?
Batman Black and White #1.
How was it?
Good. A couple of the stories are definitely just regular line art that could have used color. It wasn't drawn in a way that works with the black and white format.
Was Tradmore's one of those?
Tradmore's is tricky. It probably could have used color. I mean, it would...
It looks very wide open and a lot of... I know it's black and white.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they're not using the shadow...
Right. The one that did it the best, Greg Smallwood and G. Willow Wilson do a story, and Greg Smallwood uses the black and white format really well. J.H. Williams...
There's a lot of graphite lines to his...
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Like, for his Moon Knight?
It's Greg Smallwood.
Okay.
And J.H. Williams does a really good job with his pages. The design of it, the art of it is insane, what he's trying to do. But Andy Kubert and Tradmore definitely have pages where it's like, Andy Kubert especially is like, you
just
did
your normal
not
story.
know this was black and white. I feel like no one told you this was in black and white. because it's just wide open. Like, there should be flats, there should be shading, there should be all this stuff, and there's not. So those stories don't work out super great. But in general, I think it's a compelling package, and I think the Chad story, even though I think it would be vastly improved with color, is still great.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Did he write it too?
No, James Tynion does.
Oh, okay. Do you have that book next to you?
I do, yeah.
Do you want to leave it here?
Sure.
I didn't take one.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's like any art-driven Batman anthology. Like, it's worth at least flipping through. There's always going to be a couple stories in there that work. I remember the most recent issue of Marvel number 2. I don't really care about the whole anthology, and I don't care about the wraparound stuff. But each issue kind of has like a thing in there where I'm like, well, I'd like to see what this person does. Paulo Rivera does a really fantastic Vision short story in the second issue of Marvel that, like, by itself is worth checking out.
It's hard to separate Marvel from Marvel's X from Marvel Snapshot.
Sure. All of the, like, 17 Marvels celebratory things.
Whatever happened to the Marvels?
Yeah, it just never landed on the schedule after an initial announcement.
Also, Tom Gronkowski pointed out today that excellence never happened. The Peter Milligan, Mike Allred, basically the new X-Force book.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
It was called Excellence, and it was basically...
they put it in the back of that Ecstatics one-shot, right?
Did they?
I think during the Marvel Legacy year, I think there was an X-Force Ecstatics project.
Yeah.
Like a one-shot. And I think on the back inside page, they went, hey, we're doing a longer form thing at some point.
Yeah, but that was... I mean, it was scheduled... It said, like, coming in 2020.
Right. But, like, a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm sure it would have come out in sometime in 2020, but when they stopped publishing comics for 2 months, anything that can get pushed back does get pushed back. And it's not like 2020 was the year where a Peter Milligan, Mike Allred project had to come out.
Yet, King of Black still made it out.
Sure.
There was a pause there because I was going to say some other titles, and any title I picked would have been mean. And King of Black doesn't really work for what I was going for.
Nope.
But a lot of the King of Black tie-ins, which are hilariously now... They were previously Empire tie-ins.
Yeah.
That never came out.
The Union.
The Union. Atlantis Attacks and Namor.
Yep.
But they never changed the solicitation, so it still says, you know, Atuma's people have to decide which side of the Empire they're on.
Right.
They just changed the Y to an I. And now they're all King and Black tie-ins.
Okay.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
I read Future State Wonder Woman #1.
How was that?
And that is the Joelle Jones written and drawn one, not to be confused with what the Immortal Wonder Woman or
Nubia.
Superman Wonder Woman and whatever other ones they have. A quick side note. Kent had written a special order for someone. Not a special order, but a title to add to their polls.
Okay.
And I could not tell if he meant Green Lantern Season 2 or Future State Green Lantern. So I had to email the club member and say, hey, which one did you mean? It was not Future State. It was...
Season 2?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
To add that now? Okay.
But it's just like, I don't know what this note is for.
Sure.
Oh, man. We had a club member join today. Kind of join. I didn't do anything with it. I need you to look it over just because he filled out the form in pencil and brought it in, but it just looked like someone scribbled all over the form.
Okay.
And Gina said, can you rewrite this so it's a lot clearer? And she gave him a pen, and he kind of just traced over all the scribbles.
Oh, okay.
And I said, all right, you know what? I'll tell you what. Because I was doing something else at the time. I'm like, why don't you tell me your name, and I'll write it down here for you. And hilariously, the name he gave me was not the name he'd written on the form.
Oh, weird.
Like, it was... part of it matched, but part of it didn't. And then, like, you have to see where to sign it. I can't remember what he did, but it said something like Captain and his last name or someone else.
Weird.
That was the signature
That's
part.
weird.
And he was down for Immortal She-Hulk 2 through 5.
Okay.
Yeah, basically there's only one actual book he wrote down. And then after he left, in the who signed this person up, I made sure to put Gina's name down. She's like, hey, I tried to get him to make it clearer. Like, yeah, I know, but I'm still... you were the contact point. You're the point person for that.
Yeah.
You get the credit for that. Hilarious. Anyway, Future State Wonder Woman, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Joelle Jones art, Jordi Belair colors.
That sounds great.
Really fun story. A lot of fighting of monsters and things.
Cool.
And then a lot of ridiculous bureaucracy.
Okay.
And there is, just one of the cutest demons you'll ever see.
That's great.
Yeah, it's only 2 issues, right? That one is only a 2 issue?
I think it is,
Yeah. Yeah, but Joelle has said that is not the end of
I think
that character.
The 4-issue ones are all anthology ones. So, like,
Yeah,
Dark
okay.
Detective that has, like, 2 or 3 stories in it. And one of the most disappointing things in the second month of the Future State solicitations was finding out that Nick Darrington is only doing the first 2 issues of the next Batman stories.
Boo!
After that, it's a different artist. And I went, oh, I care a lot less now.
Speaking of the Future State, and seeing as how we talked a lot, let me check my notes. Was it last time? Was it 2 times ago? I forget, in fact, where we... Man, how come these don't... These are my notes and they don't have enough of detail. Huh. About how DC's parent company is now, all digital first. And they had a big announcement to that regard this week,
They did, yeah.
where all Warner Brothers movies for 2021 will debut on HBO Max for the first month.
Yeah, they'll be in theaters where available, but they will also be on HBO Max for 1 month.
And that sounds like a pretty devastating blow to movie theaters.
It does, and one of the first things I thought about was like, oh man, I wonder if Disney's going to follow suit. And then I realized today, Disney doesn't have to, because Disney's financial situation is way different than AT&T and Warner Media's.
Yeah, they don't owe billions of dollars.
Correct. And they don't have a struggling streaming platform. Like, one of the reasons, not the sole reason, but a reason why they're doing this is HBO Max adoption has not been that great. So this creates a situation where there's a steady stream of very big content for people to watch in HBO Max, and it gets them to sign up for the service, starting with Wonder Woman and then all through 2021 and sticking with it for the entire year, as opposed to Disney Plus, which already has huge signups as well as plenty of stuff already in the pipeline. Like, they wouldn't need to release Black Widow to get people to sign up for the service. They already have, soon to be 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, the first season of WandaVision. The new Pixar movie comes out on Christmas. Mulan just hit. And that's in addition to whatever other movies, documentaries, and series they've released over the last year. Like, HBO Max, while they have a ton of content, they don't have anything at the level where it's like the project that you have to see. So, yeah.
Do you know what HBO Max costs per month?
I believe it is $15.
Okay.
As long as you are not getting it free on some other AT&T bundled thing like I am.
And that was going to be my next point. Like, don't a lot of AT&T phone users get it for free already?
They do, but that's actually to AT&T's benefit, because it's one more reason that you would maybe not switch your cell phone service, which is making them way more money than some media company. Like, without getting too much into the details on this, and this is something that I have no first-hand knowledge of and have only read a few articles on the internet, one of the reasons why AT&T ended up buying Warner Brothers and Warner Media and all that stuff is to help them with things like their cell phone service and their internet service, and creating like compelling reasons why people should stick with their platform. So the content just becomes one more thing they can deliver on their phones and on their internet plans.
I have never switched my cell phone service. And I just kind of fell into... I have Verizon. I just kind of fell into them because of who I had back in the early 90s.
Sure.
When I first got my car phone. Do you remember that phone?
I do, yeah.
Do you remember? There was a time where I was going to have like an early dinner or a late lunch with a companion, and it was your first time being alone in the store.
Uh-huh.
And I was literally going across the street.
Uh-huh.
But this bag phone that I had, which was powered by, like, you plugged it into the cigarette lighter, and it was this like the size of a
Small lunchbox.
a small lunchbox. Yeah. Not even a small one, just a decent size one. And I made sure to bring a battery pack and have it plugged in, so if you had any trouble whatsoever, you could call me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a window, so I could still look across to see the store.
Now you don't
Yeah.
even care who's running the store.
Right.
Whatever.
Did we open?
Don't get
My
stabbed.
day off.
I started with Singular. I want to say I had a Motorola Razr that I ended up getting specifically because I was having to work San Diego that year.
Yeah.
And it was kind of short notice. So I think I ended up getting that phone mostly because it's like you will have to coordinate with people on the ground because you're going there kind of last minute.
Boots
So
on the ground.
you need a cell phone to be able to communicate with people, and it's like, okay, fine. And then
That was your first phone. Was a
flip phone.
Razr?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had that for a couple of years, and then got the first iPhone, and that was only on Singular. And I don't remember if I was on Singular or I switched to Singular to get that phone. But I think I was already on Singular. And then AT&T bought Singular, and then I've been on AT&T ever since.
Yeah, I kept waiting for AT&T to offer, not AT&T, but for the iPhone to be offered by Verizon.
Yeah.
So I waited a couple years, and I love looking at the iteration of phones that I've had over the years.
Sure.
After the bag phone was like a real clunky, like not when you say brick phone, not what you think of, but like a half-size brick phone.
Okay.
And then just the different ones. Like I had a Razr at one point. I think I had two different Razrs. I had one that was a slide-up screen. It's like
Sure.
the keyboard was underneath the top, and you slide it up, and then that was a fun one. Yeah, man, cell phones, such a weird thing. But yeah, I had whoever I had eventually got bought by and turned into Verizon. I can't even remember
Yeah,
how
I was
long it
ready to
was.
say that I think Verizon is the number one provider in the U.S. AT&T is 3 because they got jumped by T-Mobile and Sprint,
Yeah, because they teamed up.
which made them the number 2 carrier now.
So the reason I brought it up was, how many people do you think have changed or regularly change their cell phones? Like, we've changed
Somebody must
internet
because,
provider at the store once because we got the prices kept going up and we got a better deal from AT&T.
and we changed cable providers.
That's what I meant when I said internet provider. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. But
Oh, you mean here?
Yeah, but we've
Oh,
changed
in the
internet
studio,
providers
yeah.
as well. I mean,
Yeah.
like that stuff we've done a few times because usually the price gets way too high, and you're just like, I either have to cancel this or I have to find an alternative.
Yeah.
I assume that people do it frequently for their cell phones specifically because there are so many deals where if you switch or if you start a new line or if you open an account, all of these bonuses happen. So they must be doing that, and it must be working, or else every provider wouldn't be offering them year round. One of the funny details I think I read today about HBO Max is that there were, I might be getting the exact number wrong, but like 20 million people who could be getting free HBO Max and have not even activated it.
Wow.
Right. So that's one of the reasons why this whole Warner Media is releasing movies for free on HBO Max instead of, like, I say for free, but obviously you're paying your monthly fee, but there is no additional fee for these movies.
Right.
You can watch Dune the same way you would watch an episode of Friends or whatever. But yeah, the adoption rate for HBO Max has been not good. And some of that is above and beyond the quality of the service. They had problems from day one where they weren't on Roku and they weren't on Amazon. They're on Amazon now, but I think they're still not on Roku devices. And for a lot of people, that is how they get their streaming services to their TV, is Roku.
I mean,
So if you're not on Roku, you might as well not exist.
I would imagine that it goes Apple TV, Roku, and then whatever
I
else.
think it's the other way around.
Roku first, yeah?
It might be.
Okay.
Apple devices are weird. Some of them are... There's enthusiasts, but people will pick like the lower device. I mean, it might even be Amazon, then Roku, then Apple TV. But I don't know quite how it breaks down. But my feeling
When
is...
you say Amazon, do you mean a Fire Stick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that stuff... So many people use Amazon services and have Amazon Prime, and Amazon is frequently doing very cheap deals for their hardware, subsidizing it quite a bit to get you into their ecosystem and get you using more of their stuff in a way that Apple doesn't necessarily do that. The hardware cost is the hardware cost, and they're going to make a profit on the hardware and hopefully the services, but they'll definitely make a profit on the hardware.
the same way it's always interesting when someone gives you an email address that is from a company you thought was defunct.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not like yahoo.com, but
we got some AOL.com email addresses
we
that
do,
we get
yeah.
from subscribers, yeah.
Whatever works for you.
Sure.
That's totally fine. Hey, Dal.
Patrick.
We have multiple questions
Oh, golly.
from Chris Burton.
Let's do it.
Question number 1. Do you remember... Well, that was... I added that part.
No. Go on.
What was your first black and white or indie title that you remember reading that got you to read more than just the big two? And I'm paraphrasing.
Sure. I think for me, it maybe wasn't the first one, but it was the one that really got me collecting some of that stuff and looking outside of what I was reading from Marvel and DC. It was probably Zot.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
But do you remember finding Zot or how you came across it? Or
I don't remember. Back in the day, I was doing a lot of back issue filing when I was a kid after school.
Because you didn't find Zot when it was new.
It was coming out, I think. It was still fairly recent when I had found it. Like, if it was over, it had maybe just ended. So I was able to find back issues when they were still pretty fresh. And I don't remember why specifically. There weren't that many books back then, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So finding new things was a lot easier in a way because it was... You had more time to sample stuff. There wasn't this constant deluge of comics coming out every week. So occasionally, if you were a kid and you were looking through the back issue boxes, you might just pick something out and go, oh, this looks good. Let me try this out. And you might have probably recommended Zot.
I might have. It's a very good book.
It is. So I think, for the life of me, I could not tell you why Zot was the one. But I mean, I like the art style always. I think Scott McCloud's always been a good artist. And the tone of it was... it essentially was like a YA superhero book before that was really a thing that people were doing. So that I was the right age for that stuff to work. Yeah, probably. Zot, but I couldn't say precisely what clicked with that.
Here's the thing that I never really thought about. You and I, our jobs entail recommending things to people.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time when it wasn't your job, it was my job to recommend things to you.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, it worked. Not like I was tricking you, but...
Go on.
But I never really, oh yeah, no, I recommended
right.
books to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I was pretty voracious with superhero comics when I was a kid, so there wasn't really, you didn't have to go, have you ever read the X-Men? By the time I was working with you, I was already pretty well into Marvel and DC superhero stuff. I was finding things like Justice League and Justice League Europe.
Yeah, and I was more have you listened to Warrant?
Yeah, and I did, and I listened to Warrant. But comics-wise, I'm not sure if there's a lot of stuff I would look at from back in the day. I think the stuff that you had recommended to me that ended up sticking, Hellblazer for sure.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I can't remember recommending a damn thing to you.
Hellblazer.
But I'm an old person with a bad memory.
It's true. Same here. Hellblazer for sure I know, because that was one that... It was before it hit Vertigo, I think, when it was still just part of the mature readers line at DC. And there was one particular, horror issue where it's the guy who, can't stop blurting out his secrets.
Yeah.
I can't remember, that's the second half of the story. That's the horror element. But there's, a thing before that where I'm sure he makes a deal with, a demon or something, and then his life just falls apart. It's on a basic level, it's barely a Hellblazer story. It's just a basic, horror story. But it's a great done in one, and Will Simpson probably did the art on it. And I thought it worked really well, and it for someone who's not a horror guy and certainly didn't have any grounding in, that part of the DC universe, I got into it, and I, from there did Sandman and did
Can I just
Doom
say
Patrol
that I love that you reference Hellblazer, because just this morning,
mm-hmm.
and I can connect the dots, but it's not really comics business related.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about how great is it to live in a world where we got not only one season of a John Constantine TV show, but that he's been on multiple seasons and still will be at least one more of Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
he popped up on an episode of Arrow.
Yeah. Yeah, too.
Pre-Legends.
And one post Legends book.
And then a whole crossover? It's a whole crossover?
Yeah, right. And I think we need to tell Keith about Deceased Dead Planet.
Okay.
Because John Constantine is the main character of that. It's written by Tom Taylor.
I would need you to tell him that because I was
you don't
not.
read it.
Yeah, I read the first issue of the first series when it came out, and I thought, oh, okay, and then I didn't need to read anymore.
Because there was a one-shot basically about what Constantine was doing, but now Constantine is the main character of
He's
this
been on the
second.
covers, that's true.
Right. So, here's the Connect the Dots, which is meaningless, but still fun. Today's episode of Supernatural guest starred Tricia Helfer.
Okay.
Tricia Helfer was on Lucifer.
Okay.
Lucifer crossed over at Hellblazer.
Yes.
For like
A scene.
2 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love being able to see those things. But yeah, I love the Matt Ryan, John Constantine.
Sure.
And that he exists in a thing that I've gotten to see
He's pretty
multiple
terrific.
iterations of.
I mean, we were talking earlier this week about the various Hawkeye casting and some of the other stuff that's been going for the Marvel movies and the Marvel TV shows. And it is just kind of unbelievable. You sort of take it for granted now. Or I think you did previously. I did previously. Because of how much Marvel content there was. But, I mean, now in a year without a Marvel movie or a Marvel TV show, really.
Yeah.
Not counting Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess, which I wouldn't count. Or Hellstrom. Kind of hearing this casting rumor stuff and, like, which characters in the movies are going to be in the Hawkeye TV show and how that stuff is going to work. And it's like, God, it's so fascinating to me. It's just like the comics where it's like, oh, characters just pop up. And that's the thing that the logistics of that require the largest media company on the entire planet to make that work. And it literally could not have worked 20 years ago.
No, but it does work.
It does. It does work. Pretty great. Patrick, what was your first black and white book?
Well, I don't remember. I had already
Good
referenced
answer.
a few minutes ago that I don't remember these things. I do remember the specific point that the black and white Indies explosion of the 80s happened.
Because early 80s, mid 80s, you had a polls list.
Yeah, and that was the point where we, George and I, were getting everything.
Because you could.
Everything that came out. And so we were buying Teenage Ninja Turtles. Let me say that again. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We didn't get, I think we have a second print of the first one, maybe second print of issue 2, but we were buying them back then. You know, obviously, we have all the Zots. Unfortunately, I can't remember what was a black and white indie and what wasn't. Like, I liked Dalgota from Fantagraphics a lot.
Okay.
And I honestly would have to look at books to remember what it was. But literally, we were buying everything. And there was a lot of stuff that I thought, this is too weird for me. Ted McKeever is a guy who I never really understood, but bought everything he did.
All that epic stuff.
You know, Stray Toasters and
Eddie Current.
Eddie Current for sure.
Metropole,
yeah, a lot, all that stuff. It's
weird how these names just bubble back up in my brain. Haven't had a reason to think about Ted McKeever for years. Didn't read those books.
But I think Dalgota was color.
Okay.
And I don't think we were buying Usagi Yojimbo, though. I don't think we did that. First comics, we bought everything they did, but those were all color, yeah. And I'll be fair, I don't remember if Chris specifically meant black and white or indies.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if it was other indie stuff, I mean, maybe some of that first comic stuff. I mean, I'm sure you had recommended and maybe made me read, but that's a weird way of saying it. Grimjack. But from there, like, I definitely did Dreadstar. I did Badger.
Mike Grell
I did Nexus
is
for sure.
He kickstarted, I guess, a new Maggie the Cat series recently.
Okay.
She's a cat burglar from John Sable, and now they're doing high-end hardcover John Sable omnibuses.
Okay.
There'll be, I think, 4 or 5 of them total.
Yeah.
And then that'll lead into new John Sable freelance comics.
John Sable never my book.
I love John Sable.
Never.
I even one night
Grell's never been my guy. I'll be
dressed
honest
up
with
as
you.
John Sable and did the face paint for no reason.
I mean, like,
it wasn't Halloween. I just did it to walk around my neighborhood.
It's a good reason to do it. I remember reading Longbow Hunters.
That was a pretty weird book.
Because there was a period there where my local library did not have a lot of graphic novels. This is in the old dark days, before graphic novels were a huge part of your local library because they brought a lot of kids in to read.
I am a pioneer that with Laura Brueggemann over at Downers Grove Public Library. We even did seminars about it.
But yeah, because of that, Downers Grove Public Library was kind of my local library. In that when I would finish working with Patrick for a day and my mom would not be off work yet or ready to come pick me up, I would just go to the local library and just sit there for a while reading books I bought or graphic novels they had, which is where I would find stuff like...
Because I let you stay in the store, but then you hated tacos.
I did, it's true. I never had tacos. But the graphic novel selection was limited because graphic novels at the time were really limited. There were not a lot of books produced by comic publishers. They didn't do collections. So like the stuff they had was Camelot 3000, so I read that. Longbow Hunter, so I read that. Dark Knight Returns, so I read that. And it's stuff like that where it was just whatever was being produced in the late 80s, early 90s. And Downers Grove Public Library, if they stocked it, I checked it out and I read it, or I just sat there and read it. So a lot of things like that. And that's how I read Longbow Hunters, and it didn't work for me. And so, I mean, it was the Green Arrow story. Like, it was the biggest Green Arrow story for decades. And
it was his Dark Knight.
Yeah, probably still is. And I didn't care about it. I don't think I've ever cared about Oliver Queen. Not really. Maybe on TV, but not in the comics. I've never really given a shit about it.
Is it because he failed his city?
Kind of, I guess. It's never been interesting to me. Hawkeye, I like Hawkeye. I don't really care about Green Arrow.
Question number 2.
Oh gosh, there's more.
And this is a podcast-specific question.
Ooh, okay.
Why don't we have any higher levels on Patreon? Maybe a level, like a $10 level, where if somebody's in it for 6 months straight, we then send them a care package of just random back issues or things that we have.
Oh, that's interesting.
And this is pointed out because Chris did not know what Patreon was until we started talking about it.
Oh, interesting.
And now he's been a patron from, I think, since we started doing it.
Yeah, and we super appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. I think we've always had a difficult time figuring out how to monetize Patreon better because some of it is because this is not our full-time job, this podcast.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who have Patreons, it is their lifeline. It is their sole or primary source of revenue.
I think there's a level of dishonesty or disingenuousness with most Patreons, ours included, where there's at certain levels, for artists and things, you get postcards, you get drawings, you get these things.
Uh-huh.
But you need to have a reason for what people get. And I always felt you get the podcast. But you don't have to pay for the podcast. But you can.
Yeah.
So we always, the dishonesty comes in the fact that we said that we would always try to, put the money you give us back into the podcast. And we don't. We do upgrade. We do buy equipment. And we do change things for the better. But we don't. Remember we used to do this with big microphones and
Sure.
the spit guards or the pop guards.
Sure.
And we'd plug it into a mixer and things, and those never sounded that much different.
No, and on top of that, it's just more work, and that's kind of the whole thing is I think we've grown to the point where we look at Patreon as a digital tip jar. If you like this and you want to throw a couple bucks and you're not able to come into the store, sponsor some Patreon.
That is 100% what we look for it as. And we never did any higher levels because you can pledge whatever you want.
Right.
I guess.
And the higher, again, the sort of problem is that this is something that this is not our full-time job, so we do this with kind of whatever time or energy we have left for a week. So the concept of a higher tier that requires more from us is almost like a non-starter. I don't have more to give to the podcast than the small amount of time I give it each week, and Patrick gives 3 times as much time as I do. So the idea of creating something and shipping something out and dealing with all that is something where it just becomes too much work. As much as we would appreciate people wanting to do that, like Patrick said, if you feel like you want to give us more than you're giving us, you can just give us more than you give us. The
I
numbers
don't
on the
know
different Patreon tiers are suggested. You can always give more than that without
Yeah.
going to a higher tier.
We have multiple people that have made their own tiers, either above the $5 one or in between.
Sure.
I feel like there's someone, and I will not call them out. Specifically, I feel like they pledged as close as they could get to the $5 one, but not, so we don't say their name.
That's fair.
I mean, I'm just guessing.
Sure.
I don't know, but
I think
I do remember that he used to always bring Christmas cookies.
I think we've talked before about trying to do special episodes or creating a tier where it's more, not participatory, because even that's sort of beyond us, but something where people could have more of a role in shaping what we do. But again, even that it becomes too cumbersome as a structure goes, and that it just...
But also, people are welcome to send in questions all the time, like Chris did, and
right, and
we've had a couple of people say, "Yeah, rats ate my car as well." After last week, and I appreciated that. And someone sent me a video of things you could do, and a couple other people just were sympathetic about it.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago I had proposed trying to do more Patreon exclusive episodes, things that were not specifically the business of comics, things where it was Marvel movies or whatever. And you were really resistant to it because it's more work. It's a whole other podcast we'd have to record, however often we would do that. And then a whole other one you would have to edit and post and do all these things. And yeah, it's just...
I frequently toy with the idea of doing that exact thing, but instead of Contest of Challengers, those episodes would be Contested Challengers.
Okay.
Just because I wanted to keep the name going, but
sure.
It would literally be not a comics industry business podcast in Chicago. And I've always wanted to do a separate podcast just interviewing comic retailers, which you said you want no part of.
I just don't want more part of anything.
Yeah.
So you can do as many spin-offs as you want, as
and,
long as
and
I
I
don't
literally
have
am like, I had 2 different people in mind who could co-host it, but what stopped me was all the extra work.
Yep.
And the bonus episode coming up next week was, a couple hours out of my day on Monday, and I really enjoyed it, but it was like, okay, scheduling it,
Sure.
putting it in your calendar, making sure you do it, and then we record in the same room. Whenever it's done through the internet, there's always a chance of it's not going to work. We're going to mess up. We're
only going to get one half of a Brian Hibbs podcast.
Exactly. So now I will use my phone to record me as well, but that's only my part. And the programs we're using, sometimes when it pieces the audio together, even this next one, and I'm not being coy, I'm just deliberately not telling you who it's with.
Okay.
Just because you'll never know unless you go look it up, and I want you to go look it up.
Oh, no.
Even when this was done, I pressed record, and it started and stopped at the same time. The 2 recordings were 13 seconds different in length.
Weird.
And that's a thing that always happens, and I can't figure it out. But even so, when I merged them together myself this time, they were fine.
Okay.
But there have been times in the past where it's like, somebody falls behind, so the audio doesn't match up because Zencastr records 2 separate tracks.
Sure.
And I have another multiple guest one scheduled for next week.
Ooh.
So that'll be my first time doing 3.
Does that mean I have
people?
So there's a bonus episode. Am I getting a week off in this?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No. It's just making extra work from. You would have. You just didn't know it.
I squandered it.
This was your day off. Your week off.
What a waste.
But the one I do next week was always going to be a bonus episode.
Okay.
It is 1 returning guest and 1 new guest.
Okay.
But again, I'm not saying.
Okay.
The patrons will all find out before you will.
It's going to eat me up inside.
I know it. I know it would. I knew this. I knew it. It's a new month, and it's now time to thank our Patreon supporters, including our annual patrons, Becca Hilburn, Jose Villagomez, Josh Crawley of Westfield Comics in Madison, Wisconsin, our patrons that have created their own tier, Andrew Drewtroit Comics Aaliyah, Christina McChrystal, Bridget K. Neville, Chris Burton, our other generous patrons from the Say My Name tier, Arun Singh, Ben-Hur Kalagouis, Brent Helt, Chris Carr, Chris Revicant, Dal's mom Diane Bush, Drew Schreiner and Ashley Edwards, Challengers Reservist Fallon Mackerline, my brother George W. Brower, Heidi D., Jacob Sorelli of Kamikaze in Tel Aviv, Mark Hammond of All Yeah Comics, Margie, Keith, Logan, and Malcolm Springham, Marcus Nasso, Matt Armstrong, Michael Lee, Mr. Fancy Pants, Michael Romanenko, Mitchell Davies of All-Star Comics in Melbourne, Australia, former challenger Molly Jane Kramer, Morgan Kaiju Perry, Nick Baldwin of the In Love with Movies podcast, Robert Burns, Robert Lane, Ryan Alcock, Ryan Hecht, Sean Bowers, Tad Eggleston and Johnny Williams, Thomas Nagovin of Century Guild. And if you would like to hear your name thanked once a month on this very podcast, head over to patreon.com/challengers and pledge at the $5 Say My Name level. Thank you all very much, and a big thanks to all of our other patrons who generously support this podcast at different pledge tiers. Do you have anything else going on?
I don't think so.
We haven't yet done our Christmas display of the books that I think are really great, or just the stuff we have in the store, which we think are really great gifts.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to
I think
pull
it's
down.
mostly the front table right now, because I've
Yeah,
been replacing a lot of stuff
it
with
is.
the books that I know you were excited about
Yeah.
promoting, like Plunge
Yeah.
and Lois Lane, and we'll do Dead Earth. So like
Yeah.
all that stuff is already on the front table. So
Jimmy
no,
Olsen, is that on the front table?
it's not. It can be. Well, shit, I don't remember. It can be. You can definitely order some more Jimmy Olsens.
Sure. But then what goes up where the Alex Ross display is?
Nothing. We didn't sell a lot of those yet.
But you think we still will?
Maybe for the holidays, people see
Maybe.
them like, oh,
Maybe.
here's a cover with the Falcon on it. Perfect.
I had somebody request our Christmas tree as a backdrop for a video they wanted to do, and I had to say, I'm very sorry, we don't have a Christmas tree.
Yeah, no room for it this year.
We didn't put it up. We put up stockings, then I made brand new stockings, mainly because Andrew didn't have a stocking, and I thought I would just be able to run to the store and grab one of the ones that I used years ago where we all have the green lettering.
Mm-hmm.
Those are long gone.
Oh.
So I didn't want to just get him because I was gonna if I could have gotten a stocking that looked like everybody else's, I would have done that.
Okay.
They didn't have those, so that's why I went and got all these different stockings.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody has a different stocking now, but I left the ones on the front counter as well. So we all have doubles except
to
Andrew
trick
only has
Santa?
one.
Well, 2 socks, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So that's pretty much all we did. And Gina and I talked last week about hanging the ornaments and the lights. I'm like, you know what? I just don't want to get up on a ladder that many times. I'm still recovering.
Sure. I think that's okay.
And the other person who would hang them all was Donovan, and she's not in a position to be in the store to hang ornaments. Still
Yeah.
a pandemic, you know.
It's true.
And I love the way the ornaments look hanging off the lights. It's just I'm not doing it this year.
Yeah,
I didn't decorate my home this year, really.
Well, yeah, a
A little bit.
A little bit.
There's more I do, but I didn't do it. So we are open to recommend things to people. I got a weird call today, which I thought was gonna be, and I've been getting abusive on the phone because we've been getting a lot of annoying.
I don't know why that was funny to me, but it was. Getting abusive. Go on.
Oh yeah, like today I was actually dropping F-bombs on the phone to
Oof.
people. Yeah, well, because they're just solicitor calls.
There's a couple solicitor calls where I think this past week there was one where it was you answer the phone, challengers, this is Dal, huge pause. Challengers, this is Dal, and then finally the whatever auto dialing thing is waiting for someone to say hello before it'll pick up finally registers what I'm saying as a greeting. So then it clicks me over to whoever in the call center halfway around the world is ready to tell me that they are from, in this case, merchant services, which is such a common thing. We don't have a merchant services account. Merchant services is it's not a company. It's a
it's
concept.
just a general term, yeah.
Which is why they use it. They use a generic term. It's like calling to say that they're from accounts payment or whatever, like accounts payable, accounts receivable. Like, that's not a company. But of course, they'll never tell you what company they're from unless they vaguely say, oh, calling from Google Maps support. Okay, you're not, but that's fine. But anyway, as always, they call and they want to talk to Patrick, and I'll say that he's not around, or then it'll be, well, what time is he going to be there? And it's, okay, well, he's one of the owners. He has his own schedule. Can I leave a number? Great, sure, let me take your number down, and then immediately cross it off because he's never going to call you. This time I just went, no, you can't. What?
It was such a... Yeah. Being able to hear you, just your side of that phone call, it was so great.
No, you can't talk to him. And then they got abusive with me a little bit because it was, are you the owner? And I'm not doing the accent, but I assume that they have a very thick accent. Are you the owner? No, I'm not.
Yeah, you said that's incorrect.
Yeah, that's right, because they said, you're one of the owners? I said, that's incorrect.
No, they said, I'm sorry for doing this.
It's okay.
If they had said that, you wouldn't have said that's incorrect. They said, oh, you're the owner.
Oh, okay.
And you said that's incorrect because you are not the owner.
Correct. Plus, I usually just say I'm not the owner because I don't... The second you let them talk to someone that they think is an authority, you will never get them off the phone. They will call forever, which is why Patrick is never around. But then when I said that it was not correct that I was the owner, they very snippily said, then why do you act like you are? And the funny thing was, first of all, the line cut out as they were finishing their rant, so it didn't even land. But then on top of that, it's like they were reading it phonetically.
Yeah.
So the tone of it, like, I gave it a tone that it was meant to be, but it was basically, so why do you act like you are? And it was just like, it was so weird and sing-songy and sort of like they were not even aware of what they were saying. It was really great, and it was just so bizarre. And it's like, oh, from now on, I'm just going to say constantly, no, you can't talk to anyone.
That is almost exactly how I do it when they'll call, and there's challengers. Pause. Click. Yes, hello. May I please speak to Patrick? I'm also not doing the accent.
Right.
And I just say, I'm sorry, he's unavailable. Is there something I can help you with? Can I talk to anyone who makes merchant service decisions? And that is when I yelled in the phone today, no, you fucking may not. And half the time, Gina can't tell if I'm swearing at a recording or a real person.
I mean, sometimes you can't.
But I like the fact that it is sometimes, yes, I am saying that to a real person.
Yeah, and on the one hand, there's a sense of like, look, this is just someone's job and they're trying to earn a living in a place where maybe this is the only option available to them. But on the other hand, it's like, you're just pitching me, they're just following orders, and boy, I don't have a lot of happiness for that.
Yeah. Like, when I was in college, my Kathy story. Oops, I shouldn't have said her last name.
Whoops. Doc's on a podcast.
To be fair, I don't know that is her last name anymore. From back in the day, we met working at Exelon Lawn Care, doing cold calling to sell lawn care, which is obtrusive and obnoxious, and I wasn't great at it, but I was good at it.
Nobody wants to be cold called.
Right.
Nobody. Sometimes you might get someone who's like, oh, I actually was looking for that, but they would also prefer that you not approach them.
It's obnoxious to call someone at home and bother them.
Yeah.
But I feel it's particularly more egregious if you're calling a business, because our business is set up to provide a service to people, and that service requires them to come to us.
Right.
And having you call us and to prevent us or to disturb us while we're trying to do that, while we're trying to help someone else, if I have to stop and answer the phone because you want to update my Google listing.
Right. Basically, like, calling for those sort of scammy services, A, it's scammy to begin with.
Yeah.
B, the fact that I'm talking to you on the phone, that you called me up to pitch me on some stupid thing that I don't want and don't need, means that literally anything I could be doing to help my business, I cannot do in that moment. Because I'm talking to this person from a call center on the phone. And instead of just hanging up like I probably should, because it doesn't matter, because they just call you back. You just end up right back in their call queue. You can't just hang up.
No, press 2 and you'll be removed from their list.
And you never are. God, there was a company that was doing that where I sat through that message multiple times and pressed the button and it didn't do anything. The next day they would just call back at the exact same time again to give me some completely nonsense recording about something that I'd need to do or my Google listing would be delisted, and
Oh,
no one
no!
would ever find me again.
Anyway, so I got a call that sounded like it was from a call center, and I was immediately gruff. And this person is like, "Hey, I'm trying to help somebody get some books. You're a bookstore, right?" I'm like, "Well, or a comic book store. So it's just comic books." "Yes." "So you don't have novels?" "No, we sure don't have novels. Just comic books." "Okay, well, can you check on 2 titles for me?" "Sure." All prepared to say, like, to just start yelling at them for what they're asking for. Spider-Man Venom Double Trouble?
Oh, yeah, we have
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's a thing. Yeah. Which, by the way, is in the system Spider-Man ampersand Venom. So that's annoying.
It had the monkey from Why the Last Man in it? That seems like a bad idea. I mean, it's a mature reader's book.
It doesn't cross over. And then a Fantastic Four graphic novel I never heard of.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic Four within a year. And I said, "What?"
What?
And he said it again, and then he had me repeat it back to him to make sure that I was getting what he was saying. Then I'm like, "You know what? No, we don't have that." And he's like, "All right, well, my clients are interested in those." I'm like, "Well, hey, good news. He can buy anything off the website." So I gave the information, and half the time I still thought it was a scam call. But he's like, "All right, I'll pass that information along, and if he has any more questions or he doesn't understand it, he may ask me to call back. Is that okay?" Like, yeah, I guess. I mean,
what is happening?
So if we get a website order for Spider-Man Venom Double Trouble, we'll know it's a thing. But it's like, oh, you're actually asking for some, okay. But I don't know if this is you know how you get we used to get the phone calls for the hearing impaired people that would call.
Sure.
So if it's something like that, maybe.
Could be, or someone overseas who doesn't speak English, who,
Yeah.
This is someone who could just coordinate with them, or somebody who is famous-y and doesn't want to deal with, this is just someone's job, get me this book.
So that was an example of me all set to go out guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
And
you had to holster those guns.
I did, yeah. I mean, I was still holding one in my hand, but it wasn't cocked or pointed at anybody.
But you had a bullet in the chamber.
Yeah. It's only going to get worse for the holiday season as well.
Yeah, we're already getting a few of those things where it's someone's asking for something that we don't have and have never stocked and can't get. And then it's like, okay, well, I need to find this for my person. Where can I go? Where can I find that at? And it's like, I don't have an answer for you. And there's this, anger that we get on the phone when someone can't get, a next step from us.
Yeah.
We've had a couple people weirdly ask us about pressing comics.
Yeah.
And the answer is, we don't press comics. We don't deal in vintage stuff. And it's like, well, where can I go to get those done? And it's like, we've
no idea.
We've never dealt with it. I have personally never dealt with that. I've never gotten a book pressed. I literally do not know where in the world you would go to get that done. But the fact that it's a thing related to comics means that well, we should have a lead on that. And it's I really don't. But it's this, oh, okay. I'm not doing my job at that point. And it's my job is not to help you find someplace to press comics. That is completely parallel to my job. It doesn't really intersect. And that sort of frustration from people is fed back to us a lot in December. It is a lot of people who are kind of at their wit's end and they don't know what to do next and I can't help them. And somehow that becomes me ruining someone's Christmas at that point because I can't help them get to a product that we have no knowledge of and no basis with. And that's above and beyond people who are just asking for stuff where it's we had someone have an email request and one of the books they asked for is that comes out in March. If that person wants it for Christmas 2021, because it's not going to happen this year.
Yep.
And that sort of stuff is fairly common where people are asking for things. And some of it is just the nature of our industry is so collectible based where even the things that are not explicitly collectible can run out. The manufacturing of it doesn't match the reality of the demand. And all of a sudden it's oh no, we can't get Something is Killing the Children Volume 1 because our distributors just don't have it right now. Will they get it back in time for Christmas? I don't know, maybe.
Maybe. Don't know for sure.
Some volumes of manga stuff where it's I got 3 different distributors I can check and none of them have it.
There was an exchange with a customer on Wednesday, which I think you overheard, and I thought you might have wanted me to be not less harsh. I wasn't harsh, but so to be, I don't know, more
Understanding?
Yeah. Basically, it was someone who's like, yeah, it was the press and comic people too, I think.
Probably.
I've been out of comics for a long time, just getting back in. Where should I start? Like, what's good? What's going to be worth money? What should I invest in? And my answer was, we're not the store for that.
Yeah.
We're the store for people who are buying books because they want to read them, they want to get excited for them. I can't give you any advice on what a book's worth.
No, and I think that's as honest an answer as they're going to get out of either one of us. I don't have any help for speculators. I won't play that game in the ordering levels, and I'm not going to play it on like an individual salesperson level. I don't want to do that. That's not data that is interesting to me.
So here's the last exchange for the day.
Okay.
No, I don't mean this
Between
as...
the two of us?
No. There's definitely going to be more exchanges
Okay.
between us after this.
I am hungry.
Somebody called looking for a Watchmen hardcover.
Okay.
I'm like, no, we don't stock it. Let me see if we can get it for you. So, on Diamond, it is back order stock.
Yep.
It's a yellow light.
Yep.
Lunar doesn't stock it.
Sure. Before their time.
Penguin, all I could find was, when you type in Watchmen hardcover, all I got was a movie-related book by someone else.
It's probably under some other thing, because I've had to search for Watchmen stuff, and there's like 23 different entries for Watchmen.
Oh, man, I totally forgot to tell you this. Not this week, but last week's Penguin order, you got a Killing Joke novel.
I noticed that. I don't know how I did that.
Yeah.
It's tough because some of their entries are very vague.
And with no pictures.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll sell. I did that before. There was from Penguin Random House. I needed to get like a specific Court of Owls collection
book.
that we had not stocked in that format. And ended up getting the Court of Owls novel, and we sold it. We eventually did sell it. I think someone will buy it. Although I'm looking at this, and when I got in, it's like, that's a screw up for me, and maybe it'll sell. But then I'm looking at it thinking, why in the world, if you were interested in The Killing Joke, would you want a novel that's not even written by Alan Moore?
Right.
Like, why would you want A Killing Joke but without Alan Moore or Brian Boland? That's insane to me. What? No, definitely not.
I want the audio drama based off the novelization.
I like the idea of The Killing Joke, but A, I don't like comic books, and B, I don't like comic book creators. What have you got for me? Good news. Cover's not even by Brian Boland. There you go.
for Watchmen hardcover, it's like, I can't guarantee this for Christmas. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I never want to be like, I don't just want to be, no, I'm sorry, we don't have that. All right, thanks, goodbye. Let me help you. Let me try to get the book for you. Let me give you advice.
Sure.
And let me not help you, but thank you for listening.
Yeah, please keep reading comic books.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.